Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute. A podcast where we break down and celebrate the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. We're in the midst of Season 1, dedicated to reanimating young Frankenstein. I'm Alan Sanders, I'm your host.
I'm Walt Murray, your co-host.
And joining us again today on Hump Day, we have a personal trainer who's used to making people make grunting noises, but is here to help explain what's going on in a movie. Susan Delmonico.
Hello.
Hey, good to have you back.
I'm glad to be here.
Glad you're able to hang out with us for one more day. We appreciate having you here to talk about this scene as it plays out. I know you told us before we even went live with this podcast, even back, that as far as your love of young Frankenstein, what we're going to talk about today, the conversation between Igor and Dr. Frankenstein, is one of those conversations and one of the wordplay jokes that you have always kept with you from the first time you've seen this movie.
Yeah, that's right. Every time unless I'm in a very serious or angry mood, if I say the word abnormal, it's abby-normal. I just say it that way, and then I giggle.
Yeah, I think I've said that my entire life. Everybody's ever been around me is like, yeah, right, young Frankenstein, got it.
Yeah, I know where that's from.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and just set the table for everyone listening. For minute number 58, Dr. Frankenstein started off having a conversation with Igor, asking him to pull up a chair and sit down and let's chat. So it continues with the conversation of the two of them, the doctor asking about the brain that he had procured for this experiment. And it ends, and unfortunately it's going to end halfway through a descriptor of something that's 7.5 feet long and 54-inch, but we don't know what. And a lot happens.
What could he be referring to?
Well,
Got me.
Maybe someone's not seen the movie. And they're only stumbling on this minute right.
Poor soul.
That would be abby-normal.
That would be very
That would be
abby-normal of
very
you.
abby-normal.
So, this particular joke, when I first saw Young Frankenstein back on television, probably in either the late 70s or the early 80s, whenever it aired on network television, I didn't remember a whole lot as a kid, but this joke stuck with me from the very second I saw this movie.
This joke's the best. I mean, I have one note on this minute. Usually for my minutes, I have a page or two. Abby-normal is the only thing I wrote in my notes because we could take the whole time just talking about this joke. And the funny thing is, this joke started way back when he went into the Brainatorium or whatever. And it was probably
The Brain Depositary.
Yeah. The depositary. Yeah. So for the last 20 or 30 minutes, this joke has been hanging here waiting on us. And you know, we knew he had the wrong brain. We knew he had dropped Hans Delbruck's brain on the floor. So then we come to this joke, and this is just masterful. And I was going to ask you about the script on this. Did they have this written the same way in the script?
A lot of it is the same. There's going to be some stuff here that is different, and they sort of shortened the conversation early. But what I wanted to start with, because of the whole abby-normal, I cannot help but go back to, I think it was minute 40 or 41 when they're breaking into the Brain Depositary.
Mm-hmm.
And then it bothered me at the time that it was written A, B, and then underneath it, normal, then underneath it, do not use. So he is actually, in his head, it wasn't written out A-B-N-O-R-M-A-L, abnormal. It was written out A, B, then underneath it, normal. So it's abby-normal. A-B, normal. So in his mind, poor Igor, the joke was there for us 18 minutes ago in this movie on how that was labeled. A-B normal. Abby-normal.
Yeah.
And when you go back and rewatch the movie, and you know the line, and you know how funny it is, but to then see it set up that far in the past in this film with the way they wrote the tag, it's brilliant.
See, now, not watching it as closely as you guys have, I noticed the abnormal, but I didn't notice that it was A, B, and then normal underneath. I guess my mind just put it together as
Well, because
one
we're
word.
bright people. We're not Igor.
Right. Well, speak for yourself, but yeah, and I think that's part of the genius of it is that you really have to go back and think about what it was that you saw in that room. And when the movie came out, we didn't have VCRs, we didn't have digital downloads, we couldn't scan back and look at it again.
No, you had to wait for another network watching of it, because even when it was airing on television, back in our day, VCRs didn't even, I mean, they were just starting to hit the market, but they were expensive.
Yeah, or you had to spend another $2 and go see the movie again.
If it was showing.
If
That's
it was
the
showing.
thing. You know, when we were growing up, it was already out of the theater
Yeah,
for me.
you didn't have that option.
So, you know, that was the only place I ever saw it was on network television, and then eventually owning it on VHS. Or actually, I didn't own it. A friend of mine owned it. And then I finally bought it on DVD probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think I've owned it in everything but Blu-ray because I haven't joined the 21st century yet. But
Oh, get on board, buddy.
yeah, I think I even had it in a hand-cranked
You get the Viewmaster.
Viewmaster.
This is what we call slides.
But
It looks 3D.
Yeah.
It is.
but it shows too that the foresight and the depth of the writers for this movie, because it would be easy just to go for simple laughs all through the movie. And, you know, we love Mel Brooks, but a lot of his movies kind of do that. They don't all have running jokes. They don't all have, because this was really kind of a subtle one 20 minutes ago. And then you get to this part and it really, this joke blossoms and it is a killer joke. I mean, it is. And I think it is one, you know, like you said, this is one that leaves the theater with you. You don't just go, oh yeah, funny, and move on. This is one that really sticks with everybody who ever sees this movie.
Right. Just Igor's interpretation of it.
The entire,
Abby something.
this entire conversation where he truly believes it's a woman's name, and that was just that the AB must just be how you spell Abby.
Abby, yeah.
And that her last name was normal.
Yeah. And it's no problem. I dropped Hans Delbruck's brain, so I'll just get the next best one, which is the one sitting next
do you
to it.
remember when we were talking about this? When you see the shot after he drops the brain way back in the depository, there's a shot in the mirror that shows there's an entire room, there's shelves upon shelves full of other brains. But what does he do? He grabs the one right next to Hans's brain, purposely labeled, not just AB normal. Maybe he doesn't understand what that means. Right underneath it, in quotes, do not use.
Which I'm still scratching my head, trying to get my arms around. What are they using these brains for on a normal daily basis?
Well, yeah, what's a brain depository?
We talked about this, Bob's Deadheads. They diversified. See?
Yep.
Well, but this is going back to that minute, but it just cracked me up. Not only did he drop the brain, it kind of was all squishy and, you know, liquidy.
It was all
The
splashed.
ground.
Shattered.
It was a
Shattered the
brain.
glass. Yep.
And there was glass everywhere, which we did talk about in that minute. Apparently, the brain depository provides the glass because there's no way that would fit through the little slot in the door.
Mm-mm.
Well, I was waiting for a joke, you know, when he's reaching his hand through to have, you know, little brain matter on there or something.
That crossed the line,
Yeah.
Susan.
Wait a
Gosh,
second.
that's so
This
gross.
is a clean podcast. What is going on?
Boy, you really ruined it for us.
I'm sorry. My Abby normalness.
This was such a clean movie before. Yes, and your Abby normalness.
Yeah. We had nothing going on here that would make me bleep anything in any previous episodes.
No, not one.
Well, when we last had these two sitting together, and Susan, you brought this up yesterday when we were chatting about this scene, trying to, especially when you're trying to fool your kids into getting them to tell you the truth. At the very beginning of the minute here, just after we saw that the doctor was inviting Igor to sit on a stool, there's one particular shot that I think is another one of those short breakaways from this two-shot where you got the two people in the scene. It shows Inga starting to leave, but then she hesitates behind a piece of lab equipment and decides, I'm going to sit back and eavesdrop on this.
Let me check out what's going on here.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Why we have this scene, Susan? Anything that pops in your head?
Well, she's got the hots for Doc, and she wants to know what he's saying. Is he going to be talking about me? Am I going to be brought up in that conversation? I want to know what's going on.
Well, I like it because I think for me, it sets up the fact that she is paying attention because as soon as it starts to spin off the rails, because it's going to, spoiler alert, not this minute, but you can tell something's building, that she's going to be, it explains why she's so quick and on the ready to be able to jump into the scene. So I like this. If we go back to, at the very beginning of the week, to the monster walking around, to where we are here, there have been only a handful of cutaways. The camera has only been set up, I think, and in some of them, even though we come back because of an insert, like the insert of Inga's close-up when they're trying to play the pantomime or the charades game, we come back to the exact same angle where we left. Technically, there's only 4 different camera placements in this entire scene. Where the camera is when the monster's walking around leading to the charades game, which leads to the sedative, give him the sedative, put him on the table. You've got the insert of Inga's face, which is just a brief few seconds. You've got another insert of Inga walking behind the lab equipment. And then this one where they're sitting at the chair, like where the camera's a little closer. It's more of a medium shot. So technically, think about Mel Brooks here as a director, trusting an audience to have only 4 camera placements and only 8 total cuts in the span of 5 minutes of film. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Or 4 minutes, because they eventually do go upstairs coming up at the end of the week to meet somebody at the door. But 4 total camera placements, which means all the action is playing out right in front of you, like a play almost. It's no longer... Because think about it. If Susan, if this had been a typical modern movie, we would have had the close-up on Igor mugging, then a close-up on Inga mugging, then a close-up on the monster, maybe even doing something snarling, then back to Gene Wilder doing something, then back to them showing the fingers on his hands, a close-up. They'd have so many
and some crude joke.
Hyper cuts. I don't think the joke would have played as well and been as memorable if we had been so worried about, oh, show his fingers, now show their face, now show a laugh, now show a shock. I mean,
we saw everything all at once going on all at the same time, and it makes the scene much more frenetic.
I do think so. I think it adds a lot more energy to the scene. It makes you feel like there's a tension to the scene, but I think it also makes it more memorable that way.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to sound like the old curmudgeon, but I would say that the acting is different today, if not as good. But to have 4 actors who can carry a scene that long without losing the audience says a lot, but it also says a lot for the audience to be able to sit and attend to what's going on in the scene for that long. So I think there's some elements today that are not the same as they used to be, and the audience is different. You know, we want the 500 mile an hour, everything, you know, quick cuts and all that, where this, you really have to sit and pay attention and let the scene play.
What I love about this moment here, as the two of them are talking, Igor and the doctor, it's not just the dialogue. It's their whole body language. It's eyes, it's tone, it's all of the nonverbal. And I think this goes to show the brilliance of 2 theater actors who understand how to perform in space. A lot of film actors are like, oh, well, if you're not going to see from here down, I don't have to worry about it. These guys are acting with their entire bodies. And Susan, you come from a theater background as well. It's a completely different style of acting to be on stage versus on camera.
Yeah, because when you're on camera, you don't have to worry about what you're doing with your hands if it is a close-up. But like you said, on stage, you always have to be aware, well, I can't just let my hands sit here because that's awkward. That doesn't look right. And you have to be constantly aware of that.
Because we see these longer shots, the audience... You know, the reason why directors do so many close-ups is it forces the audience to look at what the director wants you to look at. When you have a wide shot or a medium shot, the audience, I can look wherever I want. I can look at Inga, I can look at Igor, I can look at the doctor, I can look at the monster in the previous minute. Here is the 2 shot. It's still a medium. I see both of them. I'm not being told where to look. I'm just watching everything, which I think helps the rewatchability, because I might have missed something the first time I'm watching the doctor talk. Second time I'm watching how Igor is responding to the doctor.
Yeah, it's hard to focus on the entire thing all at the same time.
When you also have 2 very big personalities in this scene, and both of them are physically big in a sense here, because you have Gene Wilder's hair that has gone completely awry, and you have Marty Feldman with his eyes and his gigantic face, both of them acting against each other, and I think it says a lot for their skill that neither one of them really steals this scene, but they play off of each other perfectly.
you asked me about the script. There are some changes, some things that were left out in this initial part of the conversation. Once we get to the Abby normal, everything stays the same. But one of the things that I think is interesting is, and we talked about it yesterday, he starts the conversation saying, now I promise you, I'm not going to be angry. I just want to get to the truth. Is that fair? And Igor says to him, certainly. Cut out completely. We go straight from, can I talk to you for a minute? And Igor says, of course. That brain you gave me, was it Hans Delbrück's? Here's what was cut out. Igor says, not exactly. Freddy, could you be more specific? Igor, well, if push came to shove, I would have to say no. Instead, they went straight with, was that Hans Delbrück's brain? To which he goes, no. Ah, which is the next line. Would you mind telling me whose brain I did put in? And you won't be angry. In this case, reminding him that's what he said before, but we don't need to have that line. You know, he already says, I promise I won't be angry, right? So, Igor, and you won't be angry? I will not be angry. Now, Susan, as a parent, when you tell somebody you will not be angry, but you're delivering it in an angry tone, shouldn't that already put your spidey senses on hyper alert?
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, Will Robinson.
Danger.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Where's Mr. Smith?
Oh, the pain. The pain.
Ooh, the pain, the pain.
Well, I would say that it is, when I say it, it's not. I mean, I could honestly say, I will not be angry, because I'm already angry.
I will not be angrier.
It's just how much I'm going to blow.
I just love how Gene Wilder chooses to deliver the line. You sense he's already seething. I will not be angry.
Well, and this is so similar to the classroom scene where you could tell it's right there under the surface. It's ready to blow.
The bottled rage.
The bottled rage. That cork is ready to pop. Some of the same mannerisms, some of the same pacing with his language. And so it's a very interesting scene between the two of them.
When he's finally starting to play, and Walt, you mentioned this as a private investigator, your day job, when you're quizzing a suspect, when you're questioning, you want to get to
questioning sounds better than quizzing.
Questioning.
Doesn't sound tough enough if you quiz someone.
2 times 3.
Having a conversation with.
When you're having a conversation where you might be trying to figure out what they might know. Do you find it interesting how the doctor goes about slowly getting Igor to reveal elements of what really happened?
I think it's great. I think this is a perfect model of how to conduct an interview. That you've got the trust.
Mm-hmm. He establishes that
he's established the trust. He also...
We'll sit eye to eye.
I was going to say, he got him to get up off the floor. He gave him kind of a little boost that, hey, we're equals here. I'm not talking down to you. We're going to have a conversation. He asks the questions that need to be asked, and he lets Igor answer the question. He doesn't say, oh, you messed this up. You did this. You did that. He lets him talk.
He guides him to the trap.
Absolutely.
Well, what I like is he sets Igor almost to feel like he's answering correctly. Because when he asks him, was that Hans Delbrück's brain you gave me? And he's like, no. He's like, good. And claps him on the thigh as if, well done, you answered that appropriately. And Igor's like, oh, okay. He suddenly feels disarmed.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, well, and he has had a couple of situations here in the movie where he does look for Froderick's approval. Even though in so many of these interactions between the two of them, he does kind of have a left-handed control of the conversation or the relationship, and he is looking for the approval of Dr. Frankenstein. He wants to have that approval and relationship with him.
I went through for a period of time because I didn't know what I would do in terms of maybe some part-time work or whatever, but I went through some private eye training, private investigator training. What I see here initially, and Dr. Frankenstein is very good about keeping himself somewhat in check right here, because when he says, do you mind telling me whose brain I did put in? There's a sense of an edge, and Igor has his hands. Now that's body language that tells you he's a little concerned. Mm-hmm. He's holding something right now, and he doesn't feel comfortable.
No, he's got his arms crossed. He does look defensive. He's got his head tilted a little bit to the side. So he is showing he isn't 100% comfortable here.
Not 100%. So what does he do? His very first question is, and you promise you won't be angry with me. And of course, as soon as he asks that, he lets his guard down a little bit. His arms come down. And the doctor's like, I will not be angry. And now we've got a good smile on his face. He's like, okay, good. The doctor promised me he's not going to be angry. I can tell the truth.
That's right.
Which is what you want to do as an investigator. Or as a parent, trying to figure out, who ate the cookies or broke whatever. Or in the case of older kids, who killed the car.
Yeah.
Who killed the car?
Oh.
So would you mind telling me who dented the car?
Yeah.
Who didn't go get the oil changed like they said they were going to?
Who was that? No. Do you remember when we talked about the importance of an oil change?
Uh-huh.
And you remember what we said? Could you remind me?
Then all of a sudden the hands
The
start
hands
going
go-
up in
Yeah.
the projective nature.
Well, I do, but you look at I promise I won't get angry. I will not get. You promise? I promise. I didn't go get the oil change. Ah! So is that why the engine seized up and left you on the side of the road? True story, folks.
Very true.
True story.
Yeah, there's like a parental PTSD, isn't there?
This is actually like therapy. I'm getting this all. This is going to be like my oldest is all of a sudden going to be listening to this podcast somewhere down the road because there's no way she's listening to it now. And she's going to be in the middle of, wait, you're talking about me. Yes, we are. In this case, you're Igor.
The Abby normal one.
And you did it every bit as dumb thing as Igor did. But what I do like is the ongoing conversation because us as the audience, the tension is continuously building. We know at some point we are heading toward Mount Vesuvius is going to eventually erupt.
Yes, it is. There is already the ash and smoke blowing off the mountain.
So he does say, okay, do you mind telling me whose brain I did put in? And after the whole I won't be angry, I promise I won't be angry, Igor thinks and says, Abby someone. Abby someone. Which is an actual ad-lib on the set because it's just supposed to be Abby who? But he goes, Abby someone. You mind telling me Abby who? Which I like. I like the fact that these guys are both listening to each other and then responding. They're feeding off of each other's body cues, tone. And that's actually something Gene Wilder made a comment during the filming of this and talked about early in his acting career, that what he said was too often actors memorize lines and they just recite lines when they're supposed to. But he said, what I like to do, and this comes from his theater background, is I can't instantaneously respond. I mean, there'll be times when he blows up and he will, but when he's thinking, he has to have those moments of reflection. I just heard what you told me. I need to process what you told me. And now I'm going to say something further. And I think that plays out magnificently here because while we're watching this bubble, we already know the answers. We know where this is going. But we're watching him slowly figure it out, that he's been sort of left out of the loop.
Well, and I think that there is a real skill to being able to stop and be quiet for a second. It's not something that's easy for me. I'm a talker. And when I ask a question of someone, I've learned over the years to be better about it, but to stop and let them answer. And I think in the same way with acting, if I had tried to act when I was younger, I would have been a terrible actor because I would have been walking on everybody else's lines. I've been such a spaz about getting my lines out. But I think now if I tried, I would have a different pace to everything because I would not be trying to just get my part done. And I think that's one of the genius things between these two is that they really are having a conversation. They both know where the conversation's going. They both know the key lines, but they're really having a discussion for the audience here.
Susan, we get to the point here where he finally admits Abby something. And he goes, Abby, or Abby someone. He goes, Abby someone. Abby who? And he's like, Abby normal. Gene Wilder does this moment where he almost laughs as if there's no possible way that that's what I just heard. And if you watch the scene as it plays out, right after he says that, right after Igor says, Abby normal, like to Frankenstein, like he can't believe it. He cuts his eyes across the room and ruminates to himself, almost has a smile like, you've got to be putting me on. Like there's no possible way you're that dumb.
Well, you would think after Sedagive,
Yeah,
he
well.
wouldn't be too surprised.
Well, and for some reason, the doctor seems to constantly let Igor. He constantly is overestimating Igor or underestimating.
Or something.
He's
Overestimating.
overestimating Igor's capabilities because he should be underestimating him and should have assumed you weren't going to get this right. But then he even puts that little motion where you're just like, put the finger by your mouth, like, okay, that's funny. And then he even laughs as he comes back, and he's like, okay. And he's got Igor just grinning ear to ear, like, oh, okay, you really weren't gonna get mad. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and
Sometimes it's good for someone else to say something.
well,
You gotta say something so you can stay awake. Put some energy in there.
God, don't stare at me like that. You promise you won't get mad?
Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
You promise you won't get mad?
Promise you won't get mad.
Well, do you got an extra room?
No.
No. We don't want her coming looking for you.
How comfortable is that bench out there in the lobby?
So this scene, Susan, I'll get you to comment a little bit before we go to this. When you're watching this, not just replaying it, but if what's going through your mind as the audience member, seeing this conversation, especially as we said, being an adult who's maybe used these similar techniques with kids or people trying to hide things from you or getting people to divulge something. What's happening in your mind when you're watching this reach this point toward the end of the minute?
Well, he's staying, relatively calm, but you know what's coming, and you're waiting for him the realization to set in, and then just the big blow up when, you tell your kids, I promise I won't get mad, but when the realization that they destroyed the car, you can't keep it in.
One of the things that I'm always on the lookout for, no matter how gently someone's speaking or how they're trying to stay focused, I've noticed when they start talking in very short, one-word sentences, we've got a problem. We have a huge problem. Are you telling me I put an abnormal brain in a 7.5-foot long 54 and that's where we stop. But in the meantime, and Walt, if you were you're not allowed to do this, to coerce. But if you look,
no.
The doctor has slowly wrapped one arm around Igor's back to place his hand comfortably on the hump, the other hand on his knee, Igor's knee, basically enveloping Igor in all that is Dr. Frankenstein.
Well, he's not coercing because he's already got the information. Now it's vengeance time.
Now it turns into bad cop.
This kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with my dad when my parents came back into town one time, and he said, "Where did this box of beer come from?"
See, whenever they talk in slow, short, one-word sentences, there's trouble.
You're done.
brewing.
You're
done.
done.
You are done. It's over.
Yeah. So
Flips off the bag.
Now
You're out of there.
Yeah. Now it's punishment time.
Oh, yeah. It's just a matter of, can I talk myself out of worse punishment?
Yeah. No, you can't.
You can't. Susan, when it comes to this, when the child has realized, oh no, do you as a parent feel some sense of satisfaction of finally getting the answer out of them? Like, how do you feel, even when you're going to blow your stack, but you finally got the truth?
Oh, I got the truth. There's satisfaction there. And then I guess depending on how they react at that point is how much I will envelop them in my loving arms at that moment.
And squeeze the breath out of them.
I brought you into this world. I'll take you out.
If you sense when they're giving you that truth that they understand,
Does the punishment automatically get worse if they try to backtrack at this point?
Oh yeah. It's just like that. You want another one?
What is it, like
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club.
The horns.
Yeah, mess with the bull.
Oh, yeah.
You get the horns.
Oh. Well, unfortunately, we don't know the rest of this particular sentence that he has been very slowly delivering one word at a time. But we sense it's not going to go well for Igor in the next minute.
It's going the wrong way.
It's gone sideways very quick for poor Igor, who, by the way, has finally figured out this isn't cool.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
There's no more smiles on Igor's face. And he realized, I just let him put one arm around my back and one on my leg, and I am completely at his mercy.
Yeah, we got a problem.
Houston, we have a problem. All right. Well, since we are at the end of this minute and we have to continue tomorrow to find out what happens, before we kind of give a sneak peek, Susan, anything more in this minute that you saw that we need to chat about, anything we forgot to mention?
No.
Not so much. Walt, what about you? Anything in your... I know you said all you had on your notes was Abby Normal, but anything else?
No. I just think this is just a genius scene. I mean, this whole 3 or 4 minute run is just one of the greatest scenes in this movie.
I think this is, for me, you said it, there are so many funny bits, there are so many things we remember, so many things we've already talked about, and still so many yet to come. But this is the one I remembered most, seeing it just once. I just remembered the play on words of Abby, abnormal, that he thinks it's a girl's name, and he thought it was a real person, and he thought he brought him a real brain, and to have this, the conversation build and eventually boil over has always stuck with me. And I think maybe it's because it is the thing. Every kid has had a parent trick them into giving the truth, and now we have grown up and become the parents doing it to our kids. It's like this universal archetype. It's like the one kid that Bill Cosby said there's like a 900-year-old kid who goes from playground to playground teaching all the kids the jokes, because it's like, my kids would tell me a joke. I'm like, how did you know that joke? That was when I grew up, there was a joke. And it's just, I think it's just an archetype. We all just know this is what's playing before our eyes.
Well, and for me, it's one of those lines, the whole Abby Normal is one of those lines like, we're going to need a bigger boat. You know, it just has that indelible mark that it leaves on your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody can mention it in conversation somewhere, and it's like, this is my brother. I mean, you get it, you get each other. And it is just one of those fantastic lines that is a gift to us. And it just comes out of such an awesome scene in this movie.
Well, Susan, we are going to part ways again. We wanted to bring you back. You were with us at the very beginning as we watched the doctor say, absolutely not. I am not going down this path. I will never be able to. It's all doo-doo. In fact, you coined the phrase, oh, doo-doo music. But now we've seen that he's actually gone completely the reverse. Any thoughts on that since coming back and joining us and seeing just how far the doctor has shifted his stance?
He's gone from, his normal life, totally saying I have nothing to do with it, to putting an Abby Normal brain in a 7-foot, 54-inch something.
Something or other.
So, well, we thank you for coming in and joining us and being here for these few minutes of the Abby Normal sequence.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Walt, for somebody who wants to learn, she's shaking her head like, I'm so ready to get out of here.
These two idiots.
It's just done.
This baboon cage of nonsense.
Somebody wants to learn a little bit more about this Wilder ride we're on. We're only in season 1, but we're a little over halfway through it. Where can people go?
They can go just about any place, but the best place to go is to our website at thewilderride.com. There you can find links to us all over the place, including iTunes. And one of the things we talked about a couple times, even this week, is if you like what you're hearing, please go out to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, make a quick comment just so your vote gets counted and so other people can find us. There's a funky, weird algorithm that we're trying to figure out, and so many other podcasters are trying to figure out. But what we do know is that in order for other people to find us and for us to move up on the charts and visibility on iTunes, we really need people to go out, hit that 5-star, and make a quick comment.
And if you're liking what you're hearing, don't forget to tell friends, family, share it. You can forward it on Facebook, Twitter. You can just tell people, hey, there's this fun podcast I've been listening to. Check it out. If you're a fan of Gene Wilder, if you like young Frankenstein, give him a listen. Maybe you'll like it. Help us out. Spread the word.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. And we're having fun doing this, and it seems like a lot of other folks are having fun listening and joining in on the conversation on Facebook at facebook.com/thewilderride. And we really do appreciate everybody's involvement.
All right, until tomorrow, we will continue the conversation and find out 54-inch what and just what's going to happen now that the doctor has Igor in a loving embrace. We will start off with the line, something about an inch-wide gorilla, and we will end with monsters are so passé. We'll have to figure out what the heck that's all about, but you'll have to do that by coming back tomorrow on this Wilder Ride.
Abby normal.
You put... No. Bye, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Susan. Thanks.